it is Anthog here, and I actually have a update video to make on the tracking for the Pico 4 compared to the Quest 2. So I have the two headsets here, and I'm actually going to be jumping back into VR because there are a couple things that I forgot, and there's a couple things I need to correct. One big mistake that was pointed out by someone: I used a modified facial interface on the Pico 4, not the stock facial interface. So I'm going to be taking off my 3D printed facial interface. This is one that I 3D printed, right? And that could be affecting the field of view. So I'm going to be putting on the stock interface with no glasses spacer and comparing it to the Quest 2 stock facial interface with no glasses spacer. We're going to see how the field of view is affected on both of them, or how it compares on both of them. Another thing that I forgot to do is test out the controllers if they are occluded, or if there is occlusion between them, meaning if the two controllers are in front of each other, like holding a gun in VR. If you're holding a gun and the two controllers are lined up, how does the tracking work on the Quest 2 compared to the Pico 4? That's a pretty important consideration, because early on in the Quest, there was major issue with this. Anytime you're trying to aim and your controller was really close, or your controller was lining up with your other controller, tracking would get kind of goofy. So we are going to test that out on both of those. And there is one more thing I'm going to make a note of, and it is how close you can get your controllers together, which becomes really important when you are doing things like reloading smaller weapons like pistols. So we are going to be using Pavlov today to take a look at the field of view of both the Quest 2 and the Pico 4, compare those with the stock facial interface, and we're going to be looking at some more tracking between the two and see how it works in a game involving firearms where your controllers may be lined up. So hopefully you like this. Let's take a look, and if you do like the video, maybe drop a like, maybe subscribe if that's what you're into. Just a quick note, the last video I recorded on the tracking of these two headsets, it did really well, and I'm super appreciative for that. So thanks for checking out that video, watching, commenting, and there was a couple people who subscribed from that, so that's super awesome. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into VR. I will see you over on that side, and we will test out the Quest 2 versus the Pico 4. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Quest 2. We're going to take a look at tracking. We're going to compare it to the Pico 4. Again, this is with the stock facial interface on. I do have a silicone gasket on there, so I can like wipe away sweat and stuff, and the foam in the Quest doesn't get nasty. That's really not going to affect the field of view. So we are going to check out, again, field of view, and we're going to check out just the tracking of the controllers, especially when they are lined up. We'll check out some other tracking as well, just within a different game, being Pavlov VR. So here we have a weapon. Let's go ahead and grab something more like this here, where our hands are going to be kind of vertical to each other, I guess in line with each other, and we'll see how the tracking is. And like I said, I'll also check out field of view. How much can I see in the Quest 2 versus the Pico 4? So let's go ahead and take a look here. If I put the two controllers lined up, they are lined up with each other. You can see I can move back and forth. That's really not too bad. I don't have any sort of virtual stock on, so it's not doing anything in game to like correct for anything. It's just taking the tracking from the headset. It seems to be working fine. If I pull it really close to my eye, I go back and forth. If I pull the controller really close to the headset so I can see through the scope, it seems like it's tracking just fine. There's no craziness happening. I'm just going to kind of go back and forth here. Really no craziness. Let me kind of get away from that target and just kind of go here. I'm going to put the controller all the way like underneath the headset. It's really underneath the headset now, so I can really see through that scope. And if I go back and forth, we are seeing fine tracking. I can really kind of aim in. No problems there, and these controllers are directly in front of each other, and the controller is underneath the headset, so it really doesn't have much tracking, but it is staying pretty solid. Now let's put them directly in front of each other, so one controller is actually blocking out the other. Hopefully this makes its way on the camera pretty nicely, but I'll hold it out there, and I'll just kind of hold it like this and move my head around, move the weapon around a bit, kind of side to side, maybe back and forth. It really seems like it's doing a good job. The controllers are directly in front of each other, if you can see that. Controllers are what's called occluding each other. They're in the way of each other. it seems to be fine. I really have no issues. There's no craziness happening. There's really no like where one controller like spazzes out and like does that. It's fine. So again, they're directly in front of each other as if I were holding this weapon. Normally it's fine. I'm really not seeing any issues with that. So that really seems fine on the Quest 2. And again, I want to reiterate, they did have some pretty major issue with this early on when the Quest 2 was released. There was some major issue with the two controllers. Let's try it with just hands, no weapon. The two hands blocking each other. Oh, there we go. If I hold the controller sideways or just the hands, my left hand, see how it's kind of going crazy? It's not doing what my left hand is actually doing. It's lagging behind. And there it is. Yeah, okay, so there we go. We do have some Quest issues with blocking out those rings with the inside-out tracking. We'll see how the Pico 4 compares. And there it is. Yeah, my arm totally flipped around. It'll, of course, snap back once you get in line, in view of the cameras. But here we can see if I completely block them out. Oh yeah, that's way not what my hands are doing. Yeah, so it does affect it. It does affect it. It's just actually pretty good at predicting. If I put my hand underneath here, my hand's underneath my chin. I don't know if you can see it anymore in game, but it's really kind of staying there. It's doing fine. So Quest 2 is okay, but yeah, it does occlude. It does when it's blocking out. I never thought I'd be doing this, looking at my hands in VR, going back and forth, but we're just testing out the tracking. There we go. There's that left hand going crazy, going kind of crazy. Then we show it where it's really at, and it snaps right back there. So there it is. That's the Quest 2, testing out the controllers and how they kind of work with the sensing. Again, Quest 2 or Meta Quest 2. If I'm aiming down at 100 meters, we can be really steady with this. Be really careful. You can take those careful shots really far down, really holding steady. So I will try that on the Pico 4 as well, just trying to, you know, be steady with those shots. Reloading is totally fine. If you want me to do a more like actual like trying to shoot really accurately, I can do that Quest 2 versus Pico 4, but that's just showing that, hey, I can hold pretty steady, I can do okay. Obviously not the best shots, but there it is. Now let's check out how close I can get my hands together. I can rotate them here. I am contacting the rings together. I don't know if you can fully see that on the camera, on the real person me, but here that's as close as I can get. I can rotate them together so my fingertips touch and overlap. I can get that close together, so I am restricted at getting my palms to touch. My fingertips can touch, and when reloading, it's really not a crazy issue. I'm trying to get these close. Here, I am touching controllers. For me to get my hand close enough for the game to recognize that what I'm trying to do is grab the top of this gun to reload it, I'm actually not touching the gun. Notice, in game, my controllers are touching, and I am not touching the gun in game. If I rotate my hand really close, I can do it, but that's not how you would approach this. You would approach it like this, and they contact. Maybe I'm setting this up a little bit for Pico 4, and you'll see the Pico 4 won't contact there, but that is kind of how you do it. Now, if you go and go like that at it, yeah, you can touch without touching the controllers, but that's really what you're trying to do in game, is touch it with your thumb and your finger, and they do contact. No problem in game. The game is like, hey, you can't get close enough, let me help you out, and it lets you get close enough. So that's fine. That's how close you can get your controllers together. I do find that when I'm playing this game, though, I will, be trying to reload on quests, and I'll be, doing things, and I will clink together the controllers. Not a huge issue, but they do touch. These do touch pretty frequently. All right, and lastly, let's take a look at the Quest 2. I'm going to stand as far back as I can here, centering on this middle target. I'm going to stand as far back. I'm pushing myself all the way back, and I'm going to tell you what I can see. If I line up my view with that post, let me go ahead and shoot it. That is going to be the farthest left. Those dots on that post. And if I'm looking straight forward and then I adjust so my dots are there, I really can only see that post. Interesting that it kind of works out like that. It kind of works out where like this is the farthest I can see when I back all the way up. So that's actually going to be interesting to see how the Pico 4 compares when I back all the way up. The game's not letting me go back anymore. If I look straight forward, I can really just see that post to that post. That's really perfect. So you'll see how Pico 4 compares there. Okay, I think I've got everything I need for the Quest 2. We got the field of view test. Oh wait, I want to do a vertical field of view test as well. If I back all the way up, and I look at directly center. What can I see? I can see the edge of this mat. I can see the edge of that mat. Just the maximum I can see is that bar. That metal bar. Here's the light. Then that metal bar, not the one that the light is on, but the one above it. That is the maximum I can see. Again, I'll try it again. Back all the way up. Vertical field of view. I'm looking straight forward. I can see the edge of this mat. And I can see that metal bar. Yep, that's really all I can see. Okay, cool. I think we got everything that we wanted to out of the Quest 2. I've checked all of the things. We've looked at how the hands, when they are occluded, when they are in the way of each other, how does that work? Quest 2 didn't really seem to have any major issues. There was some issue with doing this. I'll try to recreate all of this on Pico 4 and see how the Pico 4 does. When I totally block them, Quest 2 does okay, but there are some issues sometimes when completely blocking them from the side of the cameras. Okay, I will see you once I put on the Pico 4. This is already turning out to be longer than expected, so I'm sorry for having a kind of long video here, but hey, that's okay. We're okay with longer videos. I will see you once I have the Pico 4 on. Alright, I'm actually here in the Pico 4 now. I'm really surprised about this, but I was able to load in without ever closing out of Pavlov. You can see right here, actually right next to my hand. You can see there are the gunshots I fired before. I never had to close out of Pavlov. I was able to switch headsets, open up virtual desktop, hop right back in, and I'm in the same exact instance that I was in before in the Quest 2. But here we have the Pico 4 on, and a couple things, again, I noticed right away. I said this in my last video. Things are more crisp. Things are more crisp in a larger area. Resolution is higher. Field of view is higher. It's so much lighter. I don't want to overhype this headset. I don't want to make people think, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. It totally beats Quest. There's a lot of things that go into this. And I think if you're using PC VR, the Pico 4 is a better option. I'll talk more on that later in another video. But if you need to use standalone, I think Quest still wins because of the software. There's a whole lot that goes into that, and I'm not going to talk about it too much right now because the focus of this video is field of view and tracking. So let's go ahead and hop back into the range here. Let's take a look at a couple different things in game. I am going to look at the tracking of it, where if we occlude the two, also how close can we get our hands together. We'll look at holding weapons, we'll look at shooting them, and then we'll look at the field of view as well. I think those are all the things that we were talking about. It should be. We have horizontal and vertical field of view we'll talk about as well. Okay, let's go ahead and put this out to 100. And let's take a look at the same weapon, and we'll look at how tracking works when I'm directly in front covering up the two controllers. We're going to go back and forth a whole lot, just like we did with the Quest. Here, the two controllers are directly in front of each other. We're going back and forth. It really seems like it's tracking fine. Really not seeing any issues. I'm going quite quick, just like I was on the Quest 2. Totally fine. We are seeing some like tearing within the graphics, like rendering. That has nothing to do with the headset. That has to do with my graphics card, which is a couple years old but still works pretty well. Hey, if I need an excuse to buy a new graphics card, there it is. It looks like going back and forth totally fine. Here I can go back and forth like this, up and down. If I put them really close together, we'll try that with like a smaller weapon, but if I do them really close together, it does perform just as well as the Quest 2. Not seeing any issues with occlusion of blocking out the two controllers. Let's try underneath the cheek as well. If I put this hand underneath the headset, so it's really not getting any tracking information. Nothing's glitching out, nothing's going crazy. I'm gonna go back and forth quite a few times here. Nothing's going crazy for that. It really seems fine. If I bring this hand way back, I don't think I did this on the Quest, but if I bring it way back, it's really not getting much tracking information, I wouldn't think. It's working fine. So again, under the cheek, I can do a 100-meter shot like this. No problem. And in terms of reloading, we have no issues there. Reloading's totally fine. Let's go ahead and bring that back 100 meters so you can just see that, I was able to shoot, semi-steadily. It was fine. Let's try with just the hands. There's the shots. I wasn't trying for accuracy that much, but let's go ahead and put the two Pico controllers in front of each other, back and forth with the hands. I gotta be honest, this is really what we saw with Quest. Really the same thing. I'm not seeing any issue with this. Oh, goodbye hand. Oh, the hand went away for a second. I mean, we did have one small issue with, oh, there it did it again. I don't know if I'm going too fast. I don't know, but it did it. The Quest had a couple glitches too, though, so I'm not going to say this is really any different. Okay, we got this hand to kind of, oh, okay, there we go. The Quest did not actually have this bad of an issue. The Quest, oh, and there comes Pico 4. I rotated the controller a little bit, so I think it was fully blocked off. I try to really fully block it off. Hopefully I'm still in camera. Let me check what my screen looks like. Yeah, I'm still in camera. We're doing okay. I'm fully blocking off that tracking ring. It seems fine. It really seems fine. There's some rare occasion. Here we go. We got it to totally forget where... Excuse me. I'm going to edit that out. That was gross. We got it to totally forget where it's tracking. And if I rotate it just a little bit, it'll catch back up. It'll figure out where it is. So yeah, maybe there are some issues that you wouldn't fully experience on Quest because it's a little bit more developed than on Pico 4. Pico 4 seems to be really, really nice, but maybe a couple more instances where there are issues. Oh, there we go. We lost that tracking in this weird blind spot. Oh, okay. If I take the controller away, it's fine. So yeah, so it seemed to be okay. I can't really show you tracking behind the head and stuff like I did with the Blade and Sorcery video. If you want to look at the Blade and Sorcery video, I do a lot of tracking of like behind the head. I think this video does a nice job of showing the hands. Okay. I think the only other thing to do now is look at field of view. I looked at how the control track... Oh, no, how close can my hands get? So remember on the Quest 2, my hands could only get about this close. On the Pico 4, I can get, fully touching. I can get fully touching. My fingertips fully touching there when I do that. I can clink the controllers together, and that's how close they get. I can take something like a pistol, and I can actually touch. Look at that. My controllers are not touching. My controllers touch right there, but I can get there without actually touching the controller. And so, small difference, something to be noted. Something to be noted. Small difference. I'll use the same weapon I did before, 1911. Small difference, but I can actually get there to where I touch the weapon in VR and my controllers are not touching. Double handing, holding it with two hands, I think that's important too. I can get right there when the controllers are touching. Quest 2 I think is a little farther away. And so it just adds to the realism of it a little bit. Being able to get slightly closer. Okay, and now let's take a look at the field of view. Please never throw firearms. This is a video game. Please never do that in the real world. Okay, let's take a look at field of view. Again, I'm going to go in the center one, back up as far as I can, right here in the center. And if I look straight forward, oh yeah, I can see a good extra like few inches over here. And then on the other side, I can see like that whole pipe. Let me do it again. I'm going here. Yeah, so I can see like all the way to here and then all the way to here. So it is a little extra with the Quest. I can only see like right on those pillars. And the vertical field of view, let's go ahead and take a look. Also, one thing of note, this is the stock interface. It's not the 3D printed one. It's the stock one that comes with Pico compared to the stock one with Quest. If I go all the way back, let's look at the vertical field of view. Remember on Quest, I could only see the corner of this mat. I can actually see 4 dots in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see 4 more dots in on the lower end. Whoa, it's actually a few more dots in. Quite a few more dots in when I look straight forward. And I can see all the way up to this like second red line. Like okay, let me put the bottom at the same point, the edge of that mat, and we'll see really how much more it compares if I put the bottom of my view right there at the mat. Yeah, I can see like all the way up to like here. It's actually insane how much more the vertical field of view is. I can see a ton more vertically. That's interesting. The vertical field of view seems to be a bigger advancement than the horizontal field of view for the Pico 4. But yeah, I don't know, there it is. If there's anything else you want to see comparing the Quest 2 to the Pico 4, or maybe just the Pico 4, or maybe just the Quest 2, if you have questions about it, please let me know. I like making VR videos, and I enjoy kind of messing around with this stuff. The Pico 4 is definitely my #1 PC VR headset. I returned my Index a while back, and I think that this is... for the price, it's less than half. It's really close to a third of the price once you're all said and done. I think it is so good. visually, resolution, comfort, lightness, wireless. Like I really enjoy it. But yeah, there it is. That's our video. Quest 2 versus Pico 4. Hand tracking, or not hand tracking, but controller tracking. How does it work when you are covering up the two controllers with each other with your own hand? How does it work? How close can you get? And then what's the field of view like? There's one more thing I want to do. I don't know if this is going to actually properly show if I exit. Okay, this is actually, I think this is a good way for you to see what I'm talking about. These are the Quest 2 controllers. They are the virtual controllers that Steam VR thinks I have. I'm obviously using the Pico 4 controllers. You can see those on the camera. I think this is a good way to illustrate how much closer you can get with the Pico 4 controllers. This is where the Quest 2 would contact. Click, click, click. But I can actually get, that much closer with the Pico 4, right? I can get way closer on the, like, really, really fine details if you were trying to, like, put things together, like, build something. I can't get the bottoms as close, but usually you're doing things with your fingertips. So there you can go. I can get so much closer with the Pico 4. Is that a point that you care about? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're doing things you need really, really fine detail with your hands that you want to get close on. So there you go. I think that actually illustrates that concept pretty well. That's how much closer I can get compared to the Quest. Where you can see the Quest wouldn't be able to get any closer than this. I can get super close with the Pico 4.